friends, I'm very happy to address you. In fact, I'm doing this recording from Delhi, where I come for the CCBI and CBCI meetings. And Delhi, fortunately, is not very hot as I expected it to be, but I would say east or west, Bangalore is always the best. And so I'm very happy to greet you this week. Let us begin with the message of the week. It's the 24th Sunday of the year, and fortunately, it coincides with the Feast of the Holy Cross. The Feast of the Holy Cross is always on the 14th of September, and this particular Sunday, the 24th Sunday of the year, as it were, is replaced with the Feast of the Holy Cross. In fact, the Holy Cross is celebrated so often during the year. On Good Friday, we pray very specially and we surrender ourselves to the sufferings of Jesus and our own sufferings at Calvary. So let me take you to the readings, which are very symbolic this time. The readings of the Holy Cross are from the book of Numbers, the book of the letter of St. Paul to the Philippians, and also the Gospel of John, in which we have the best sentence of the Bible also. Let me start with the book of Numbers. You find one of the dark spots of the Israelites, whom God is trying to help more and more because He loves them. But unfortunately, they are so hard hearted that they rebel against Moses to say that, why have you brought us out of Egypt? They are on their journey towards the promised land. They need a lot of patience, but they don't have. Instead, they are like the disgruntled people, always murmuring, always sort of complaining against God. Why have you brought us here? We could have died there. Were there not enough graves in Egypt for us to be buried there that you should bring us here? There's no food here, there's no water here. And God has always been merciful. He has fed them with heavenly food, what we call manna. He has, by the strike of Moses' rod, as it were, the rocks have brought out the waters, but then they are still disgruntled. And so we see Yahweh getting angry with the people, and he sends them serpents, poisonous serpents, as it were, to bite them, and surely they die. And once again, they come back to Moses, sorry, sorry, sorry. We have made a blunder. We knew that God was always good and generous, but then we were impatient. So please ask Yahweh to remove these snakes, the serpents from us. And God tells Moses to prepare what's called a bronze serpent and put it on a pole, as it were. It's a very stupid, or I don't say stupid, but a small gesture. You can't test God. And God says, okay, do something so that these people can forget their illness, they forget their pains, as it were. And so Moses makes this serpent, bronze serpent, and everyone who sets his eye on this serpent is cured of the poison of the serpent, as it were, and they live. This is directly connected with the Gospel of John, chapter 3, where Jesus also said, just as the bronze serpent was raised in the wilderness by Moses, and all who looked upon it were saved, so also Jesus on the cross. Anyone who believes in Jesus who is crucified, who died, rose again, will live. And we have that beautiful sentence which summarizes the whole of the Bible. John chapter 3, verse 16. God so loved the world that he sent his only Son in order to redeem us. And St. Paul corroborates this message of the cross. The cross is never a scandal. St. Paul says that at the time of the Jews it was a scandal, and for the Greeks it was more of a funny issue. It was something that was they could not understand itself, they could not comprehend it. But for us, the cross is a sign of liberation, the sign of our redemption. And so St. Paul in his letter to the Philippians says that Jesus became nothing. He emptied himself so much that there was nothing in him, and he took the form of a slave, took the form of a slave, and that is why God has raised him to the greatest heights, as it were. So therefore, anyone who takes the name of Jesus will live forever. So, my dear brothers and sisters, the cross is always a sign and symbol of our glory, of our resurrection. Many a time the cross, even in English language, the cross means a trouble, struggle, something that we have to avoid. And we use it. Who has given me this cross? Who has given me this burden? And we make a much out of it. But Jesus says, through the cross, there is always a salvation. In a simple Indian English, we say that there is no gain without pain. So the pain of the cross gives us the biggest gain, as it were, in our life. And therefore, as Saint Helena, the mother of Constantine, as you know, the symbol of the cross, the symbol which was put on the flags of Saint Constantine, and that became the victorious symbol. So for us also Christians, the symbol of the cross is always a sign and symbol of glory. So, my dear brothers and sisters, let us celebrate this Sunday with joy. Let us exhibit our crosses. I'm fortunate to have a cross. We bishops have a cross. And surely many of our people also have a cross. They have a small cross in the chain. They have a crucifix in the house, perhaps a picture somewhere. May the cross be always honored and remembered as a sign of victory. I now take you to the second point, namely, we have just finished what we call the Basilica feast, and it was a great, great event. It was a landmark event for the whole Archdiocese. We finished the festivities on Monday, 8th of September, that's last Monday, and lakhs of people have visited during the time of Novena, during the time of feast. And I was told also 2 days after the feast, in fact, 3 days after the feast, the crowds were still coming. People perhaps who may have missed out during those days of the novenas, or maybe may not have come because they knew that the crowds would be so much they would not be able to enter. They came later. And so the question that is asked is, what is special about this feast of Mother Mary at Nagar in Bangalore? I thought there are some beautiful characteristics which I could mention to you. First of all, it's a common feast. It's a feast that creates a lot of harmony, a lot of perhaps joy among the people. And it's not only the Christians who come to the basilica, there are the Hindus, there are the Muslims, there are Jains, there are Parsis, there are so many VIPs who came across and they visited the basilica to say that this is our basilica, this is our mother house. The Basilica of the Nativity of Mary that we celebrate is like a mother house that we always long to go back. And I'm so happy to say that the Bangaloreans, especially the Christians, come back to this basilica at the time of the feast and also at the time of the year. And therefore, it is a common feast. Secondly, I always admire the devotion of the people, the faith of the people, the queues that are there, a mile of queues. There are old people, there are sick people, and no one grumbling, no one, everyone has patience, and everyone goes slow one by one, as it were. The people consider it. Someone told me without a queue in the basilica, look, it doesn't look like a feast for us because we are always to waiting in the queues, as it were. But it's not an inconvenience for us. Therefore, the devotion of the people, the devotion of the crowds. There's a particular police officer that comes again and again. She is on duty at the basilica and she tells me that, Bishop, I feel so happy. I asked my superiors to put me on duty at the basilica and I enjoy it to see the people, the devotion of the people, the way they join their hands, the way they raise their countenance as if to God. And I also experience a certain peace. This is the experience of many people, the devotion of our people. Thirdly, I say that the discipline, beautiful discipline. Many times the police officers have told us, we have actually nothing to do here. We're just standing and enjoying the crowds. We are enjoying the processions. There is nothing that we can do here because absolutely there is so much discipline among the Christians. Even in the car procession with 1.5 lakh people, we didn't have to do much. The people themselves got into the lines, as it were, got into the queues and followed, and so silently, so joyously singing the hymns, and therefore the discipline was beautiful. I also say that the cooperation and collaboration of so many people, starting from the priest, the clergy that there are there in the basilica, the sisters who are constantly helping in the sacristy, the vestments, the communion distribution, the volunteers. I was told there were about 1,500 volunteers at every spot, as it were, at the basilica, inside, outside, the queues, in the kitchen, everywhere the volunteers, and noiselessly they managed it. I really admire these volunteers. Perhaps many of them didn't bother about their eating time, their food. They were not even given perhaps some water to drink, but they did their duty so well. So much of collaboration, and among the volunteers, I also have to admire the government officials. They were on double duty, like always at our, not only at our beck and call, but to reach out to the need as such. Many a time the police also were so much worried, but then they were so much concerned and cooperative with us. And also the water people, the electricity people, the BBMP, the VIPs who came and went, so many people at one time. And finally, I say the generosity of the people, the generosity in their time, their energy, their benefits, their contributions. The generosity of the people is something. And therefore, I think the feast of the Nativity that is celebrated at this basilica is something special, something great, and something to be remembered, not captured not only in our, I would say, the photographs, the videos. It's much more than that. The people proudly say, I was there. Where? I was there at the basilica, to say that it is something event that I would not be missing it all my life. So therefore, let us bless and thank God for this great celebration. And I especially thank all those who are involved, starting from our parish priest, Father Sebastian Arokia, all his assistants, and the parish council members, the sisters, the religious, all those who came for confessions and the confessors, all the pilgrims, all the volunteers, the police, and the other officials. Our Bishop Rector, Bishop Joseph Suzainathan was in Rome, but he constantly was calling me to say that I am praying and I'm also watching from there the crowds, as it were, that are coming for this feast. I now take you to a very special topic. We have had two saints in the last week, two great saints, I would say, though they are small people, they are young people. And so, this millennium saints, as it were, they are called. And this year, the two saints are Carlo Acutis, a boy who died at the age of 15, and Pier Giorgio Frassati, another young man who died at the age of 25 at the beginning of the last century, almost 100 years ago. And so these two saints were supposed to be canonized by Pope Francis, but as you know, Pope Francis surely joined them in heaven, and he must be in good company of these two saints to say that I was supposed to declare you as saints, but then I'm already here myself. And therefore, Pope Leo took upon himself to postpone the date a little more. It was supposed to be in April this year. And so, in the 7th of September, at a big celebration, and the what we call the Piazza San Pietro was full of the people and many youngsters. Something special about both these saints is they were youngsters. The one, as I said, died as a boy at 15, the other one at 25. And I think the century or rather this particular year also, the Jubilee is fulfilled with the canonization of these two young saints who are models for the young. Let me briefly explain to you these two saints. The first of all, Carlo Acutis. He is a sign and symbol of the youth, and he was born on 3rd of May 1991 in the United Kingdom, but then his family shifted to Monza, Italy, and he died at a very young age on 12th of October 206 in Italy. His parents were devoted parents, always supported him. And something that we have to say about this particular boy, Acutis, Carlo Acutis, is that he is already declared as the patron saint of the internet. Internet, you can imagine in his age of 15 years when the internet was just developing, he was already a master. He sort of made use of his computer as it were, and the mobile also, perhaps mobile must have just come in that time, and he used it as a perfect use. Nowadays we see the misuse of computers, the misuse of our mobiles, but then this was a great boy. And so you know what he did? He collected or collated all the Eucharistic miracles that happen all over the world. He made a document of it, and he was passing it on to the youth to say that, near your house or near your place where you're dwelling, there is some miracle that has taken place in such and such a year. You can watch it. And also the apparitions of Mother Mary. You can imagine a boy who's devoted to Eucharist and Mother Mary. Unfortunately, we can't say unfortunately, perhaps God's will is such that at the age of 12, he was first detected with what we call the cancer cells of the blood, leukemia, they call it, and the doctors tried to save him. His parents were desperate in the beginning, but then he was always smiling and joking. In fact, a day before his death, he used to have told his mother, Mommy, why you are crying so much? Why are you so sad? Don't you want me to be in heaven? That was his one. And therefore, as a boy, as a youth, as it were, he passed away very quietly, giving his life to God, as it were. And so he's named as the saint of the internet, and also God's influencer. There's another name that has been given to him. In the corporate world, you employ certain people who go and make publicity of your products. Let's say if it's a computer, if it's a particular car, you have to go and speak well. You have to say this car runs very high speed, it consumes very less. These are called influencers. And Carlo is God's influencer. What is he selling? He's not selling any material things, but he's selling the affection of God Himself, that God loves us. So that was Carlo Acutis for us. And the second saint that I speak of is what we call the Pier Giorgio Frassati. He was born in Italy itself, and being a Italian, he lived in Italy. He was born on 6th of April in a place called Turin. The place Turin is also very famous for Don Bosco. And he died there on 4th July 1925 at the age of 24 or 25. Something about his life. His parents, especially his father, was not a good Catholic, or rather, he was an agnostic. Can't say he's an atheist, but he dabbled a little in politics, and politics of that time. He was a senator, and during the time of the war, he sided the government or the opposition, etc. For that matter, even Pier Giorgio was also involved very much in politics in a small way. He went for demonstrations. Once he was supposed to have been arrested also because he was against the government that oppressed the poor. He oppressed the poor, and he said, "No, this cannot be." And as a young boy, he joined many associations. He joined the St. Vincent de Paul. He joined the Catholic Association, the Catholic Action, they call it that time. And being a member of this, he tried to help many, many people. There are two small incidents about how he was kind to the poor. When he was young, it seems one day a beggar came and knocked on his door. And when he opened it, our Pierre Giorgio sees that this boy is standing in the cold barefoot. And what does he do? He removes his shoes and gives it to him. Gives it to him. A second time, there was a drunkard who came and knocked the door, and this time the father opened the door and got angry because this drunkard should disturb us. He said, "Get out, get out." And Pierre Giorgio, who was behind, saw this. Perhaps he felt very bad. He ran to his mother and said, "Mummy, Daddy has sent away that man. Of course, he's drunk." And mother says, "Go quietly, find him and come, bring him to the house. We will give him some food." That was his love for the poor. And when he finished his graduation, the father is said, supposed to have told him, "I can give you a big gift, son. You have done so well. Do you want a car?" You can imagine in the year 1920s when the cars, automobiles were just coming, and his father was a big man. "I'll give you a car, or you want a sum of money." What does Pier Giorgio choose? He takes money. He says, "Car is useless for me, but money at least I can distribute to the poor." So this is Pier Giorgio for us, who is also declared a great saint of this perhaps millennium. And in this year of the Jubilee, he has been recognized as saint by Pope Leo, who has canonized both the saints Carlo and Pier Giorgio. I now take you to one more saint, saint of this week. September 18th, there is a very special saint. I would say very special because you don't have a saint like Saint Joseph of Cupertino. Why? He's called as the flying saint. You know what's a flying saint? You can imagine today morning you go for a mass, and at the time of consecration you are bowing your head, you close your eyes, and when you raise your eyes, the priest is not there. He is there near the ceiling. Near the ceiling is there. He is flown up. He is a flying saint. That was Joseph Cupertino. He lived in the year 16th century. In fact, he was born on 17th of June 1603 and died at the age of 60 on 18th of September 1963. He was born in a place called Cupertino, and that's why he's called St. Joseph of Cupertino. At the young age, he felt that he had a vocation and joined the Franciscans. But unfortunately, the Franciscans thought he was more of a distraction than an attraction. The distraction was, as I said, he was levitating out. He was going up and down. And therefore, for the people, they said it's a big distraction. People were distracted during the Mass, during the holy celebrations. And not only that, he was to go into ecstasy. Ecstasy. And the Franciscans said, "We don't want all this. We want people who join their hands, close their eyes, and sit on the ground, sit on the chair as it were, rather than fly off." And so they told him, "Go home." He was almost dismissed. But then he begs the Franciscans, let me be at least the part of your community by looking after the cows, looking after the horses, perhaps. I will work in the shed, the cow shed." And they said, "Yes, perhaps the workers were less. Okay, you can do some work there in the shed." But even there, he was found to be praying. He was found to be in ecstasy and at times also perhaps going up, flying saint as we call it. And therefore took him back. He was ordained in the year 1625 as a priest, and till the end of his life, he was a great help for the people, counseling them, helping them, curing of their illnesses, and that is called Saint Joseph of Cupertino. We celebrate on 18th of September. I wish also we pray to him not to give us that grace of going up and down, but more to have belief in God, that God is always with us. I now take you to the jewel of the Archdiocese. It's also a very special jewel. The ones who are going to the airport every time, if you just look this side, that side, suddenly you find a red cross and we feel a consolation. I'm going to fly today. Every time I go, I look at this church, I say, "God, my life is in your hands." Not that we expect any accidents to take place, but then even that is necessary for us to see that I have prayed before a church. And that is the Church of Holy Rosary at Venkatala on the airport road. There is a little history of this church. Perhaps the history goes back to 1969 when Mr. George de Costa was very much associated with our Archdiocese, a very devout man with his devout family, always for the church, stood for the church, and it is he who is supposed to have donated the land where Holy Rosary Church Venkatala now is existing. And so he gave this land for the church. And in the beginning, there were few people from here and there who came. So therefore, the first church was a hut church, a hut church. And as you know, Venkatala is a place where there is what we call the Air Force base, and many of the soldiers or many of the Air Force men are up and down. They are coming. There are some families, civil families also. So they were very happy to have this chapel. They came together, but people started increasing. And it's that time, perhaps, Archbishop Swami thought of building a new church. And so the foundation for this new church was laid on 7th October, the Feast of the Holy Rosary itself, in 1977. It was completed the very next year, and Archbishop Emeritus, late Swami, the inaugurated this church on 20th of December 1978. But then once again, the church was full and overfull. Something very special about this church also, I am told that it was made in the shape of an aeroplane. Maybe the soldiers, the Air Force men must have given their talents and expressions also. Let's make it in the shape of an aeroplane, and they made it an aeroplane. But then that even the aeroplane, like all our planes, they could not contain all the passengers. So therefore, they again started thinking about the new church. In the year 1992, this church of Holy Rosary, the parishioners, belonged to the Our Lady of Velankani church close by, and they were separated and became an independent church. And from that time onwards, they also thought perhaps we need a bigger church. And this time we have a great philanthropist in our archdiocese who has helped not only the churches, the places of religious places, but also the government. He has built police stations, he has built schools, he has even helped the people build their temples and mosques. And he is called a philanthropist and honored by the British government and also by the Indian government. His name is Mr. Ronald Colasso. And therefore, Mr. Ronald Colasso came forward and said that I would undertake what we call the repair and renovation of this airplane shaped church. That means the frontage part could be redone again and all that. But then once again they said, sometimes redoing and repairing and renovation cost us much more than the new church itself. And therefore, people said, perhaps we need a new church. And that's how the new church, the foundation was laid by Archbishop Bernard Morris in the year 08208, 20th of February. Archbishop laid the foundation, and Archbishop Bernard Morris himself, after 4 years, inaugurated it on 22nd of April 2012. It was a great help and support by Mr. Ronald Colasso and also the other benefactors who put together and built a beautiful church on the road to the present airport. The first parish priest was Father Prem Arukyanathan, but before that, the MSFS fathers looked after this parish till the year 2011. You can imagine the MSFS fathers have been a big source of service to our archdiocese. They are looking after the whole of Kolar district. They are looking after the Nelamangala, the parish of Ijipura, the parish also they are close to the airport, and so many other places. And therefore, this place also was looked after by them till Father Arokyanathan Prem took over as the first parish priest in the year 2011. As you know, Father Arukyanathan is a good parish priest. He keeps so much touch with not only the Christians and the non-Christians also. Presently, he is also the secretary of the interreligious dialogue, and therefore he built a lot of friends among the people in that parish. He was succeeded by Father J. Balraj, another great priest of our Archdiocese who has served in the missions and also the parishes, and he also was very much for the people with a lot of associations, with a lot of groups, with the SSCs, visiting the families, looking after the, also making arrangement for the cemetery and looking after the sisters also. You know, the sisters of Mother Teresa. There's also a very interesting story. Mr. De Costa is supposed to have donated that land to the sisters to say that something for the poor has to be done. And that's the time Mother Teresa was becoming a little famous and important, and she took it up and kept her sisters in charge there to run an old age home. And that is how the Sisters of Mother Teresa are also in Bangalore, thanks to Mr. George de Costa's generosity of the land. The present parish priest is Father Gregory Mariappa, another friendly and saintly priest. I say friendly and saintly because he's always smiling. Any problems, any difficulties, he just sort of sweeps the people's minds and hearts, as it were, and solves them. And therefore, he has taken charge about 2 years ago. He's looking after the people well. He has done a lot of improvements. And also, he is now looking forward to what we call repairing or rather furnishing of doing some beautiful things in the cemetery, because the cemetery is not so much well looked after in that parish. And now Father Gregory also has taken it up, and he's uniting the people in different ways and also blessing the people in many ways. He's also dean of the deanery, Venkatala deanery we call, which goes up to the outside our archdiocese, outside of Bangalore. There are some places which are under this deanery which are well looked after. And so I wish the present parish priest Father Mariappa Gregory, I wish the Mother Teresa sisters, I wish and bless and thank the parishioners, especially the young, the youth, a very happy year of the Jubilee, as we are proud of you as our what we call precious jewel of the Archdiocese. Thank you very much. God bless you.